they've started to talk about the simple idea that we want to have a clear picture of not how many people were tested each day, but actually how we get to the edge of the cluster. Are they actually testing the close contacts? I asked about it yesterday in Select Committee. Today they started releasing data, and what did we find? That actually hundreds of high-risk close contacts still haven't been contacted, let alone tested, let alone had their results back. And only just over half of all the 20,000 contacts in total have actually been tested. But media is starting to report that, something we've been pushing for a few days, and it's made a huge difference. So thank you very much, everyone who has been pushing that along. But then there's the saline solution scandal, which is absolutely unbelievable. Now, okay, 5 people who may have got a saline solution instead of an actual Pfizer vaccine doesn't sound like a big deal. The real issue is this. It happened on the 12th of July. The government said nothing. It was only because a whistleblower told media and they found out that it has become a big story. And when Chris Hipkins was asked, actually by Brooke Van Velden, the ACT Party's health spokesperson and deputy leader in Select Committee today, he said, well, actually, there's been other cases like this we didn't tell you about either. And what's more, we weren't sure what we were going to do. We were just deciding. Well, actually, they had 5 weeks to decide what to do and didn't know what they were doing. And then at the very end of it, within 24 hours, they're writing everybody a letter saying, we're sorry, we may have screwed up your vaccine. It's not about the 5 people who may or not have got vaccinated. It's terrible for them and the government should apologize to them. It's about the fact that it was a botched cover-up where the government equivocated, thought they could sweep it under the rug. They couldn't, they got busted. Now they're being open, and now they're being open that it may not be the first time it happened. And this is a theme ACT's been talking about throughout this whole COVID period. We want the government to treat us like adults. We know what they're doing is hard, but if they take us into their confidence and give us ownership of the solution, we'd feel a lot better about it. The next thing I'd say is that we actually are starting to make progress. The mood is changing. People are demanding more from the government. There's a real debate about what the long-term strategy is, and you're starting to see it appear through the media. That is hugely, hugely helpful. Now, I want to introduce someone very special. Nicole McKee is somebody who was for a long time a firearms instructor, helped hundreds, if not thousands of Kiwis up and down New Zealand use firearms safety. When our nation had a tragedy in Christchurch, she was the one who was called upon to speak for licensed firearm owners who are under a lot of pressure and much of it unfair. I saw her on TV and I thought, lady, you're in big trouble. And she carried it off well. I gave her a call, and 18 months later, she ended up in Parliament with the ACT Party, and we've been thrilled to have her on board because she's made a huge impression in the House and the media and out on the campaign trail. So Nicole, welcome. It's really great to have you here. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the work you've been doing as our Justice spokesperson on the Honest Conversations Law and Order paper. So kia ora and welcome.
Oh, tēnā koe, David, and it's great to be here. What an introduction. Wow, I just got to make sure the blushing goes away. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Hey, well, tell us all about this Law and Order. A lot of people on the Honest Conversations tour were talking to us about Law and Order. What have people said about Law and Order, and how does our policy respond?
Yeah, look, when we did our Honest Conversations tour, and also when we went about our Freedom tour as well, we heard a lot from people that they were quite anxious about what's happening with crime in the community, with what's happening with the gangs really taking over. And of course, when the news came out that we were having recruitment of gangs at a quicker and faster level than the police were recruiting, and then the police went on hold, we really knew that we had to do something for the people that are saying that they've got problems. So ACT got together, we sat down and we nutted out some really good policies. We released them a couple of weeks ago, and I'd like to share some with everybody tonight. The first one is addressing the issues that people have told us about gangs, especially the increase in gangs. So we would like to introduce some gang injunction orders. It's not a across-the-board injunction order. It means that people who are on the national gangs list, and they have to be on that gangs list, would be able to have a gang injunction order placed upon them if the court suggests that that's the right way to go. And the court needs to make up that determination based on a case that police take to them. So what that means is if police think that somebody is behaving badly, may continue to behave badly, they can go to the court and ask a judge to have a gang injunction order placed on a particular person to stop them from either associating with other gang members, going to a gang pad, going to places of business, whatever they think is fit to stop potential crime from taking place. So that's one initiative that we have instigated. It's targeting only those that commit crime in our communities and only those that are on the national gangs list. So it's been proven overseas to be successful. We think it will also be successful in New Zealand, and we're looking forward, if we come into government, to putting that through as one of our bills. We also have some other initiatives, including looking at what we do to rehabilitate prisoners that go into jail. Because really, at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that when people come out of jail, that they are in a place where they could perhaps feel that they have bettered themselves and can go out there and make a really good contribution to society. And we can do that by ensuring that there are rehabilitation or education courses available for prisoners, and that they should not be able to apply for parole until they've undertaken such a course. So it's about making sure that there is a future for those prisoners when they come out of jail. Another thing that we want to do is make sure that we have policing numbers fit for purpose, fit for the country. And at the moment, what we've seen is politics around policing numbers. You know, every time you get a new government, they talk about what they're going to do to boost the numbers, and then they don't do it. We would like to take the politics out of policing and ensure that the policing numbers actually match the number of people that we have in society, so that regardless, as the population grows, the police number should grow. And if the population decreases, then we don't need so many police. Can't see that's going to happen, but we want to make sure that there's no politics involved with how we keep our country safe. Another thing we want to do is a review of the IPCA. And we think that's really important, because when we're looking at the way that policing themselves.
So if the population decreases, we're not going to fire any cops, are we?
No, I'm sure that we could actually put them into other tasks, perhaps having a look at what they can do for rehabilitation services, or having a look at what they can do out there in the community. Policing is not just about enforcement, it's also about encouraging good behaviour. And I saw a Facebook dance move that the police did at a school recently. I'm not saying we send all our police to go dance at schools, but there are other opportunities. They'll dance better than I would, that's for sure. Maybe you too, David.
Well, we haven't. In fairness, we haven't seen you dance. I think you should do Dancing with the Stars sometime.
Oh no. That would see. I'm going red again. No.
Back to keeping people safe.
Yes, keeping people safe. One of the other things we want to do too is this government has introduced a 30% reduction in prison or prisoners going into correction facilities, and we don't think that that's working. If people have been told to do the time, they really should be doing it. But what we have to make sure, and this is where the rehabilitation program comes in, is that we have them in a better place when they come out. But actually sending people away, sending them home when they've committed serious violent crimes, that's not the answer. We want a deterrent for them. And, I think that out of all of the policies that we've got under the law and order, there are ideas that are workable that I think the community will like, and we've had some really good feedback on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the government has a target to reduce prison numbers. They basically want to get the prison numbers down, then see how much crime there is. We're pretty keen to get crime down and then start working on the prison numbers with rehab. Totally opposite philosophy. We're putting the victim at the centre and rehabilitating the criminals. They're letting the criminals out and bugger the victims, which personally I think is completely wrong. There was one thing you mentioned about the gang injunction orders, but also about trying to change the profitability of dealing drugs. What about?
We've just lost David there, but I know where he was going with this. He's talking about the Criminal Proceeds and Recovery Bill, and that's a bill that I've placed in the ballot box with government, and I think within the first 8 weeks of being sitting as an MP for the ACT Party. The Criminal Proceeds and Recovery Bill will allow police to be able to freeze and seize assets of criminals in organised crime more easily. At the moment, every time you hear on the radio or on the news that there's been a raid, you always hear that they find guns, they find drugs, and they find money. But at the moment, if the police want to seize those assets, they have to meet a whole lot of thresholds, including proving that the assets that are there have been brought with criminal proceeds money, and also that it's over the value of $30,000. That's really hard. We would like to see police to be able to go in there and freeze and seize assets upon finding an illegal firearm when they do those raids. And that's a really important piece for police and for the community. Furthermore, we'd like to make sure that any of those criminal proceeds actually go to the victims and not back to the criminals. So that's one of the bills that we've got in there at the moment, and it's sitting under my name. But we might be changing that pretty quickly because I've got another bill that's coming, but that's a totally different subject.
A prodigious producer of bills. I just have to apologise to our ACT TV audience. It's a bit embarrassing for an electrical engineer, but we're being plagued by technical difficulties tonight, and we'll stay with you for as long as we can. It may be that my ongoing criticisms of the CCP are really starting to pay off in a negative way, but these things happen. Hey, look, if anyone was in any doubt about what ACT's law and order policies are, you've just heard them at very rapid pace. And I think one thing you can say is that people are totally fed up. They feel that people who pay their taxes, look after their families, follow the law, are almost taking a back seat. They're almost less trusted than the mongrel mob under this government. Jacinda Ardern seems to believe in redemption for everybody, except for people who have done no wrong. They just get to pay and pay. And I think that is philosophically the wrong approach. ACT has many practical policies that would tilt the balance so people can walk around the streets, enjoy their lives safely. And I think you've done tremendous work in that Honest Conversations document, which is on our website for anyone that would like to see it. This is usually the part where we turn over to you because, of course, in ACT, we're representatives. Our job is to take the concerns and aspirations of New Zealanders and actually try and take them into a political action plan that we can implement in Wellington to make New Zealand look like the country the people who actually pay the bills want. And so we're going to go to your questions. Shelley says, is there something you and National can do to stop Labor passing laws in lockdown? Well, technically, no. I mean, we got an elected dictatorship. There was a guy called Guy Fawkes, and he certainly did something about Parliament passing the wrong laws, but we didn't advocate that. We're in favour of the rule of law here at ACT. But what we are prepared to do is keep asking the questions and putting the pressure on. If you look at what we've done over the last few weeks, people are outraged that Parliament has been shut. And as I said last night, the place is crawling with cleaners. The planes are flying to Wellington. The Prime Minister has shut down Parliament because she doesn't want opposition MPs to fly to Wellington and ask questions in the debating chamber. We got another question here from Craig. Can you address the lack of MIQ rooms available and specifically ask the head of MIQ if they actually know how many Kiwis are trying to get back to New Zealand? My 9-year-old daughter is stuck in South America and I cannot get her here. They let hordes of non-Kiwis. I'd probably challenge the last bit. It is almost impossible to get in if you're not a New Zealand citizen or permanent resident. Although there have been some high-profile examples. I'm pretty sure the Wallabies are not Kiwis. I'm pretty sure that they probably wish they were. They might have played better. And I'm pretty sure that the Wiggles are not Kiwis, but I could be wrong about that. And so certainly those America's Cup nannies. But by and large, there's a lot of people who are immigrants who don't have residency, who have half their family on one side of the border, half the family on the other. They can't get in. There's a lot of people in these situations. But your question is one that really needs to be answered by the government. There are so many Kiwis locked out of their country. They can only get 200 people a day through the border. Before COVID, 20,000 people a day into New Zealand. They're literally down by 99%. X solution is private MIQ, where private hotels that do saliva testing twice a day, everyone on site's vaccinated, they do it by a cohort, they use better technology to monitor people. We could get a lot more people through the border. You might see something coming up in the Sunday Star on that. We've got a request to talk a little bit slower. Thank you for that. I want to put a question to Nicole that she's the best person in Parliament to answer by a huge stretch. She says, can you please answer why the police are adding and changing the Arms Act every week? All licensed firearm owners are breaking the law because we don't know what the law is from day to day. Nicole, you've been following these new regulations really closely. So for people out there, what's going on and what should be done about it?
Yes, you're right. And I think the fast talking was me. So I'm going to make a conscious effort to slow down.
Not a race.
But yes. Look, Robert, I think it was, that asked the question, you know, that's a really good one. And it's really hard for people to understand what's going on because we've had two big pieces of legislative changes that have gone through in a very short period of time. And once you do that, you have to have regulatory or regulations to go with them. And because the changes have been so many on so many different types of things, the government have basically said, let's start implementing them at different stages over the next few years. So when the bill became an act, we didn't have everything change at once. It's changing slowly. And we've got police trying to keep up with regulations as well. So we're effectively being drip fed a whole lot of new pieces of legislation and not really being told about when they are being implemented. And that becomes really confusing. And on top of that, we've also got discussion documents that have gone out, and people think that the things that were in that discussion document is now law when it's not. So effectively, we need to keep an eye on the regulations, because as police implement them, they will be updating it. But also keep an eye on the police website, because as they implement them, they will notify on that website what they're doing. So we're not having new laws every week. We're having the implementation of two sets of laws instead, and it's going to occur over the next 5 years. And, ACT are working on a policy. It's called a whole new Arms Act that takes the best bits of all the legislation that we've had since 1983 and producing something that not only we as firearm owners can work with, but what the public can see as being safe measures and what the police can actually implement in their regulations.
Yeah. Can I just make the case that, basically the problem, first of all, is the rush nature of the laws. But the other thing is that they're trying to micromanage types of firearms, and that leads to inevitable complications. What would be simpler is to have a rigorous test of a person being fit and proper, make sure the right people are fit and proper, the wrong people don't have the firearms, and then be less doctrinaire about, does that firearm have the right number of screws holding on the butt and all the rest.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you there. And of course, what we are seeing in some complaints that I've been receiving is the way that fit and proper test is now being implemented by police. And, there's no consistency with the way that it's being done. We are aware of this, and we are making this an issue with the minister. We are asking questions at question time on your behalf, and we're trying to help you out so that you can actually abide by the law. But back in the 1980s, we moved away from looking at the firearm to looking at the person. And there was a failure there in the way that police were doing it. They need to fix it. They're in that process, and we all have to work with them, but to a point, because at the end of the day, when we are the ones that are being targeted by police and we haven't done anything wrong, we just feel victimized. And that's not the right way to get people to abide by the law.
And I can't help but notice, these laws that Jacinda Ardern brought in have been so successful at trying to keep people safe. That the big debate, and someone's asked about it, and we've answered this in other forums, is should the police be armed because firearms are out of control? I thought that these tough talking laws from Jacinda Ardern fixed the problem. And I think if you want an indictment on how unsuccessful those rush laws were at keeping people safe, you only need to look at the fact we're now on an arming the police debate. But can I just go to police consistency? I really want to get to this one by somebody who says, I was told by a police officer that I shouldn't be outside of my house around 2 a.m. this morning. I explained I had to just get out of the house, so rode my bike up the road. He told me I should exercise during the day. Now, I find this, there's so many questions here. I guess we all have our own diurnal rhythm, and some people exercise at different times. And I would say to the person, if you're feeling like that, it might be time to maybe talk to one of the lines that are there for, counseling and people feeling stressed out. If you feel you've got to get out of your house at 2 a.m., maybe there's a bit more going on there. But we're here to talk about the law and justice. Now, Nicole, it would seem to me that there is, I've looked at the alert level 4 public health order. Anyone can look at it on the COVID-19 website. It says all sorts of things, but it didn't prescribe correct exercise times, did it?
No, look, it didn't. And if you actually go to the legislation and look up the COVID-19 Public Health Response Act in section 16E, there are details about what is required for being able to go out there and exercise. There are no time limits on it whatsoever. So I suggest that people actually look to find that COVID-19 Public Health Response Order and look at section 16E. And, we actually do have a Justice Select Committee hearing tomorrow where the Minister of Police and police themselves will be attending. And I think it's a good time to start asking some questions about the consistency, because it's a very short paragraph on exercise, paragraph 16E. And I wonder why police are not able to implement that. But I'll ask that question tomorrow in Select Committee. Come and join us. We're live. Yeah. So you can watch us on Facebook or Parliament TV.
Yeah, look, if you're at home, which you might be tomorrow, a great time to watch Nicole. Hopefully take it to Poto Williams, who I have to say, I like Poto at a personal level, and I've had a bit to do with her over the years as an MP, but some people, when they go from MP to minister, especially with a responsibility like being the police minister, it just doesn't seem to be an easy transition for them. And I would say Poto, sadly, is one of those people. You might not know offhand, but do you know what time that select committee is?
10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So it'll be live on Facebook, Justice Select Committee, or Parliament TV on demand. Oh, no, not on demand, Parliament TV Live.
Yeah, I think it's like 31 on Freeview or 86 for rich people with Sky. But we're just going to more questions. Someone said, I have to answer this, Dave. Why trust private MIQ when the state-run operation is mucking it up? I think in a way, the answer to your question is in there. I just make the case that people in private business with the right incentives usually do a better job than the state does. And there's so many examples of this that you just have to imagine, imagine if we let the government run the cell phone network, for example, we'd be lucky if we had text messaging by now. There are things that could be done in MIQ, more saliva testing. That's a private sector technology. The government's done everything it can to resist, even though it's clearly better on the evidence. That would be part of our private MIQ. I think that you'd get a lot more accountability, better results, and more capacity so that people like the folks that asked earlier about their poor 9-year-old stuck in South America would have more chance of getting a space, because right now it's booked up into next year. We've got more questions here. What about when are the government, in fact, anyone going to stop using the term renewal of firearms license? And in fact, it's a new application. For example, if I renew my driver's license, I take an eye test, pay the money, walk out with a renewed license. Firearms license, put in an application 4 months early. Okay, so there's a bit of a technicality, but there have been issues for the licensed firearm community throughout the lockdown. That what happens if your license expires during the lockdown? Do you sort of become a criminal, or do you have to sort of throw your firearms in a well out the back so that they no longer exist? I mean, what happens?
So there is a difference between the renewal and a new application, but when it's time to renew your license, you are treated like a new applicant. However, because you're renewing, you have firearms in your possession, and that's where the difference is. So if your firearms license expires at the moment, you have to take all of your firearms away from your home, from your already pre-approved secure facilities, and give them to somebody else to look after. What we are suggesting is that under COVID-19 laws in 2020, when we had the last lockdown, there was an extension offered to those whose licenses expired and police couldn't get round to see them. We've been advocating for those people who are renewing to be able to retain their firearms in their possession while police get up to date with the, with the 10,000 odd applications that are sitting in their bucket waiting to be done. So that's where we speak about the difference between a renewal and a new license. It's the difference between being in possession of firearms and not. And once your license has expired, police now determine you to no longer be fit and proper from one day to the next. And we just think that's not right.
Well, Nicole, you're so logical and practical. I can't believe you're in Parliament, although there is a loophole for people like you, that's being an ACT MP. We're really thrilled to have you. It's been another great round of ACT TV, except for my technical issues. I apologise for those. I know they've interrupted us once or twice. And just as you recall, Nicole's going to be on the Justice Committee quizzing Portal Williams about some of the ins and outs of the police's response, which has been pretty inconsistent, it has to be said, at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So thank you very much for joining us.
That's if I'm given the opportunity to actually speak, which I will be determined to get there, but it's pretty hard when you've got a government-led chair who's making sure that we don't all get the chance to ask all the questions we want, but we will definitely be going hard to try and do that.
To be honest, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I'm actually more fearful for the chair. Good luck, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hey, I just want to thank everybody for watching. We had a few technical issues. These things happen. But ACT TV will be back again tomorrow night, and we're going to be talking about COVID. How can you not at this time? But also about the immigration issue that is so much a part of COVID. So many Kiwis stuck overseas with MIQ problems that we've touched on tonight, but also so many people in New Zealand who are unable to work because, get this, Immigration New Zealand has again been caught short doing their applications on paper. They've all gone home. They're processing very little, and the backlog's actually getting longer while the borders are closed. This is something that needs to be dealt to. We're going to have Dr. James McDowell, who is one of ACT's MPs who actually ran an immigration law firm with his wife before entering Parliament. So we're really thrilled to get into this because it's affecting so many people, so many harrowing stories, and it gets to the heart of how New Zealand is actually going to come out of this and eventually safely reconnect with the world. So that'll be ACT TV tomorrow at 7. Of course, this broadcast will remain up, so if you'd like to see it again, you always can. But for now, we'll just be looking forward to a night's sleep. Everyone stay safe, follow the rules. Lots of things to criticise about the government's response. But of course, we still have to follow the game plan we have, because a team that doesn't follow its game plan doesn't have one at all. I hope everyone has a really great night. And of course, if you like what you're hearing, then please feel free to go along to the ACT Party website, act.org.nz. Check out our policies, our principles, our ideas for a better tomorrow in New Zealand. And if you really like it, maybe consider signing up to the Free Press, New Zealand's best political newsletter. Some people say that's a biased assessment, but as I say, I think my dad's actually a really good judge of political newsletters. And you can sign up to the Free Press for free on our website, or even join ACT as a member. Get more involved in changing this government and changing the direction of New Zealand. That's enough from me. Thank you very much. Have a great night.